Hi, and welcome to this week's SV Lynx video. We are going to have a big week. We're finally going to be finishing up the forebeam, putting the carbon fiber, wrapping it in the carbon fiber. And we're going to end the week with putting the basalt on the port hull now that we have our Sicomin.
So let's get to it. So the goal of the day, we're going to take this off, give a rough sand on the top of the carbon fiber piece so that it has good bonding when we put this on, and we're going to rebond the top of this permanently to the bottom so that we won't have to do any more work inside of here. Yay. So we'll pull the clamps right now and then get to work on that. So this is all hard as a rock, but as you can see, there's a slick surface on the top from where the plastic was, and we can't have that, so we're going to give that a little rough texture here with some sanding right now so that the epoxy we put up here in a few minutes will bond nicely. Yeah, I've kind of roughened up the top now. So I'll just have to clean it up with some alcohol and check the edges of the wood where it's going to bond on either side. Make sure that's all cleaned up, and then we're ready to bond the top on. Since getting ready to bond this, it's finally time to pull the peel fly off of here and expose that nice surface for bond. While Brian does that, I'm roughing up the edges. Alright, so those are roughed up. We'll just take some alcohol, clean up all these dusty edges so that they're ready to bond. And almost there. The surfaces that we're going to bond have been sanded and wiped off with alcohol so that they're clean. We pulled the peel ply off the top, so we're ready to bond these things together. Never to see the inside of this again. Yay. So to get that done quickly, we're pre-measured out the amount of epoxy we think we need without hardener in it, and have one backup as well in case we end up short and we need to have another batch ready really quickly. And so we're going to start with this one, divide it in half to put the bead on either side, and then we'll mix both of the second ones at the same time to get on top, and Brian will take one, I'll take the other. And boy, cross your fingers. All right, well, here we go. You down? Yeah, quarter inch your way. Barely. Just pull it to the side. There. Perfect.
We're going to work on laminating the forebeam, and we need to use our Sicomin epoxy for that. So today we've installed a pump, and we're working on pumping out into our 5-gallon container that we have. Okay. Also today, we're moving the basalt over to the lot so that we can, this coming Saturday, put that on the port canoe.
Oh, wait. You're gonna lift it?
I was gonna tip it.
All right.
Why don't we?
Crush this.
Well, that's the way it got in there. Oh yeah, you're right. Oh dear. Okay, you got it.
Oh, baby. That only weighs. Oh, I got that only weighs about 300 pounds, so fortunately that's the heaviest of them. But we got to get it there. As Marianne said, we've got a whole crew of 10 to 12 people showing up Saturday. We have two different weaves, and one of those weaves is in two different thicknesses in grams. So, and the final one is a plain weave.
They're all heavy.
Now, who told us to build a boat out of stone that's supposed to be light, like a performance catamaran? That would be Reichard von Wolfschaft. And it was his fault, because he called me up and he said, why don't you build it out of stone? And I said, because stone is heavy. And he said, not basalt. And then I did the research and damn it, he was right. And we're going to show you why he was right as we do some tests on this basalt, and you'll get to see all that. All right, so we have our West System epoxy, our Sicomin laminating epoxy, and our basalt, and off to the lot we go. Time to take this beam off of the form, finally. It's been on there for months. My first worry is how is it going to detach?
Well, that's what I said. That's why I brought the multi-tool.
It'll detach just fine. Very. Can't show that one. So we have a beam. This is the ugly side that we haven't sanded yet. We've sanded, of course, the inside's all done, and we've sanded the top, but now we're going to have to sand this inside that's been on this form all this time, so we could never get to it. But now we can get to that inside. And we'll also have to sand off this squeeze out that we did here. So it's going to take some work there. And that's what we're doing now. Going to get that all cleaned up so that we can do a little bit of patching on any little spots that we need. Sand that, and then we can put the carbon fiber onto the bottom section first, and we'll do the top section another day. Alright, time to start sanding. So hot, I'm only going to go in a half suit just to get my stuff off my arms and head. All right, that hot job is done for the rough sand. Brian's been following me and doing a little finer sand on it, so that speeds that up. But the rough sand went pretty quickly, and it's looking pretty good for a rough sand. You can see what a mess it was before when I showed you, but now we've got nice, smooth stuff for the most part. Once in a while I'll find some little spot like right there that we'll have to sand with the orbital. But really, it's pretty close already. So we've got this blunt nose done out here as well. So there's some fills that we have to do on the inside. So once we get this sanded up just a bit more, then we're going to do some fills in a few little gaps and holes in here and there. And then we'll sand it again either this afternoon or tomorrow. Well, next up, Brian and I are going to mix up some West System 105, and I'm going to come in here and fill these holes and a couple little gaps like right here. So got to do these little filling in here, and then tomorrow we'll resand the entire inside of this forebeam, and that should get it ready to put the carbon fiber layers on, which we have already cut, but we can't apply them until we repair this a little bit. So that's what we're up to now. So we're filling in any low spots and any gaps and holes in here. So we've gone all the way down both sides of the hull, getting nitpicky about any tiny little problem. Nitpicky, because we've done this several times already, and we just want to make sure that we got everything, since the basalt is about to go on this thing in only 4 days. So where you see the blue tape are where we got nitpicky about a few little spots, and there are a few more on this side, I believe, than the other side, because this side has actually had one less round of fixes than the other side. But that's not too many, so we're gonna just grab some epoxy right now, fix these up, and we'll sand that tomorrow. I'm gonna do a quick cleaning where we're gonna repair. All right, so we'll patch these up now. Probably gonna take us about, I don't know, 5 minutes to patch that up. It's not too much left. Most of this is ready to go for the basalt, so quite happy with it. All right, we're down to the last few of these. This will be ready to final sand tomorrow. Okay, so both sides are patched and final sanded, and we're going to put that basalt on in a couple days after that. So now it's got to go clean up. Brian has already sanded the forebeam, ready to put our carbon fiber on. As you can see, it's really nice now. So all ready for our carbon fiber layer, and we've wiped the whole thing down now in alcohol, so ready to go. And today's the first time we're going to be using our new Sicomin epoxy for the outside, so we'll give that a try today. We're wetting out the board right now, top of it, and letting it soak into the wood. And we're going to wet it out some more before we lay down our first layer of carbon fiber. All right, now we'll re-wet it. I'll start from starting from this, well, where the joint is right here. I'll go this way, you go the other. All right, it's all wet and Beautiful looking, because you'll never see it again. This is the last view of this wood, ever. Now we're going to wet out a layer for the 45-degree pieces. There are 2 layers of 45s, and they are sandwiched between 3 layers of full length. So it's time for the first 45 set. So we pre-mixed 6 of these containers, and it's pretty much 1 for each layer right now. We'll see if we need all of that, but just in case we do, didn't want to run short. And Sicomin is a little different ratio than the West system. This is 100 milliliters to 32 milliliters for this particular hardener. So a little different. And our cups don't show milliliters, so we also go by weight. Very similar ratio. Okay, that first 45 layer came out very nice. So now we're wetting out for our next full length layer. All 6 layers plus the peel ply are on. So all the carbon fiber layers are on. Peel ply is on top, ready to peel when we're done. And Friday, we're going to flip that thing over and do the other side of the forebeam and all of its carbon fiber layers. And those wrap around the end as well as going over. So they do the wrap on the bullnose portion of it. And we got a lot of that stuff done today as well. Thanks to Brian's amazing skills at sanding. He sanded the entire work we did from yesterday on both sides of that port hull. So that canoe is ready for Saturday when we're going to have our big team of people to put all of the basalt on there and do some cutting of all of the basalt to get it ready for Saturday when we're going to put it onto that hull. All right, we'll see you on Friday. Good morning. We're here early, and again, we have to be quiet in the first hour or so. So instead of working on the forebeam, which we're going to get to, we're starting to cut the basalt that goes onto the canoe that we're putting on tomorrow. So this is a biaxial weave, and we're using a thinner amount of gram cloth than we would have used had we been using the e-glass, because this is stronger stuff, so we can take it down a little bit. That means it'll use a little less resin to wet out, and that'll make the hull a little bit lighter and a little bit stronger. So that's the benefit of using this basalt. Now, we had trouble with our electric shears. They don't want to cut this. They'll cut it, but it makes pulls in it, and we don't want that. We want the cloth to be nice. So we're going to have to just cut it with fabric scissors instead. So we're going to measure out each piece along there. It's about 13 pieces to go down the hull. This is the second layer, and so we just happened to get that roll out first. Doesn't matter. The first layer is a little bit heavier weave, and so we'll cut that one in a moment. But we're going to cut the second layer first, and we'll test the first one out on the nose, which is a very small piece, and then we'll see if our measurements are working, and then we'll start cutting all the rest. Brian's sanding the other side of the forebeam here so we can put the last few layers of carbon fiber on. There's a little runoff that ran down from yesterday onto the bottom, so we had to sand that off again. And I'm pulling the peel ply back while he does that from the edges so that we can get the carbon fiber to wrap all the way around the blunt leading edge of the beam. So Brian's still sanding over there, and he's nearly done. But while he did that, I took measurements on all the basalt for both layers of the hull. And just to give you a look, this is what the basalt cloth looks like. It's very, very well sewn and woven. Now this is biaxial, so you can see the strands coming out this direction and also coming this direction. So they have two sets of strands in there sewn in, and this is the stuff that's going on the second layer of the canoe. The first layer will be the same thing, but it's a 600 gram thicker weave than this one is. And so I'm going to go ahead and continue starting to cut out the rest of the second layer. We finished up the forebeam, and when I mean finished up, I mean it's done. All 7 layers are on there, and all we have to do is pull the pupil on this thing is finished. Of course, we haven't cut the ends yet and such, but as far as all the work to build it, it's all done. We'll put this aside pretty soon, and it won't be a couple months at minimum, maybe 2 to 3 before we need to put this on between the hulls. But we are certainly happy to have this thing done because it's been the hardest thing of the entire boat building. So nice to have it behind us. We're getting our basalt ready for tomorrow. It's a big day because we have our big team coming in to put all the basalt on the hull. And so we want to get all 26 pieces, each one is just a different shape, all pre-cut so that we don't have to do it in the morning when we start at 6 a.m. We can just start putting them down with epoxy. So we're getting started here, and we're measuring out each of the different angles. This one we've already marked. Pen, thank you. And we will go ahead and have Marianne cut this because she's the seamstress. She's made a lot of clothing in her life. And because she's a seamstress, we're going to make Marianne do some of the different parts of this boat that require sewing. For example, she's going to be making the chaps for the dinghy. That'll be the first thing that she's going to sew on our Sailrite sewing machine that we already purchased. And then later she's going to also sew cushions for the boat. And then eventually all the enclosures that go around the whole cockpit and helm, which are both bug and rain protection, both. So she's got lots of sewing in her future for us. So we're on to number 6, 21 to go. Finished up cutting all 13 pieces of the 400 gram, and now we're going to cut more basalt, but this is a 600 gram. This is the larger pieces that go on to the hull first. So we're measuring these out and cutting our shapes and getting all 13 of these done. Then there's just one last piece that's more of a full length piece, single piece that goes on the third layer. So off we go. Pull. 101. That's about it right there. Good. All right, we'll continue cutting. Good morning. We're here to finally put the basalt on the port hull, and this is our crew, including future crew on the boat. And I'm going to explain to everybody what we're doing right now so that they are all on the same page, understand their jobs and all that stuff. So here's how it works. We have two layers of basalt, A's and B's, and they go, actually it's 1s and 2s, layer 1, layer 2, and there's A's, B, C, D, E, F, G. So one team is going to take and wet out the hull. The next team is going to take and put in 1 and 2, the first 2 panels of the ones, that's A and B, but not the second panels. And then the wet team's going to then apply more epoxy to that, and then we're going to have another team, dry team, is going to put on the second layer, but the first rollers are going to go to the first 2, but then 2 of them are going to go forward, and 2 of them are going to go back to the other side and do the second layer. Then we're going to move forward and we're going to repeat all that. And meanwhile, we have the mixers are going to mix both honey and straight epoxy with different silicas and stuff. And they're going to supply that to the wet team. And the wet team is going to roll that out. And the dry team is going to drape things, but they have to be careful because they have 2 layers of 600 or 450 gram. And then they have peel ply they have to lay on, and they have to do that in the right orders. And there's A's and B's and C's on that as well. And after we get all that done, we're going to march down the hull and we're going to get all this done in 3 hours without any mistakes. Got it?
Yes. Sure. Got it.
Let's go. Was it the bar after the morning? Who's on first?
Cool.
Who were you?
Of course, that was just a joke. I really did spend time dividing everybody up into teams and explaining each person's job. So Lauren and Marianne were the epoxy mixing crew, and then John and Rebecca were the wet out crew, and they would go down the hull and wet out the hull with the thickened epoxy, which was basically the consistency of honey. And following them, we would have Dale and Terry, who were the dry team, because they would never use any epoxy. They would just lay out the cloth, be that basalt, first layer or second layer, or the peel ply. And following them, there was Terry, Todd, Brian, and Ken, who would smooth out and roll the cloth down into place. Then I would come along and wet that out from the top again. And later, when Rebecca and John were done wetting out the hull portions, they would come back and help with wetting out the cloth as well. Here's how it worked. We put the first layer 2 pieces down, then the second layer with on top of that between them, then another of the first layer, and then we put another layer of the second layer, and then the peel ply. Then we just go down the hull the same way.
This way, all the layers that touch go down within 45 minutes of each other.
And like here you can see Dale on the left there in blue, and Terry on the right bringing in the next piece of basalt. But Brian's helping them get it centered on the hull to make sure it's in the right placement there, because he can't be rolling there until they get that down, so instead he would help. And then once the cloth was down, then the rollers would step in. That's Ken in the black shirt who's going to start rolling, and he's smoothing it out with his hands right now. And then you'll see John and myself wetting out the second layer. But we need peel ply next, so of course the dry team is now bringing in the peel ply and laying it over the very first area, and the rollers would then start rolling that out. So there's Carl and Brian and Ken and Todd, all of them working on that piece of peel ply right there, while I'm ahead of them wetting out that next piece of basalt so that it will be ready for the peel ply to go on fairly soon. And so this went on and on. So then further down the hull, we see a big piece of basalt going down. That's a first layer piece, so that's farther on down. And that was pretty much how it worked, and it went very well. And after the first few pieces, things got into a kind of a groove. And sometimes people would help with other jobs if they were waiting, but in general, people stuck to the jobs that they were meant to do. It took us about what the estimate was. I estimated originally out to take 3 hours, and that's what it took. And that's why we had to, like I say, stagger them and lay these things down in this particular order to make sure that the pieces were going on within 45 minutes, because the whole job was going to take 3 hours. So we couldn't go down the entire hull and do just the first layer because the bow of the boat would already be too late then to put on the second layer. So we had to go first layer, second layer, and peel ply kind of in a sequence, moving down the hull. And so they just kept going and going. There were, how many layers? 39 pieces all total, if you count the first layer, second layer, and the peel ply. So it's a lot of cloth placement to get all of this on, a lot of rolling out, a lot of wetting out. The girls who were mixing the epoxy for us, Marianne and Lauren, would mix it as fast as they could mix it. And as soon as they could mix one, they were doing another. And we went through, quite a bit of epoxy here, keeping this sufficiently wet out for each of these stages. Oh, I didn't mention that Will's job was to deliver that epoxy. So the girls would mix it, and then Will would take it and fill the wet out pans for Rebecca, Dale, and myself, and keep us full all the time so that we never had to walk back and get epoxy. It was always being delivered to us. So it was a nice, fairly well organized chaos, is the way I want to say it. Everybody did know their job, and everybody did their jobs, and it got done within the 3 hours. It just was like craziness, though, because everybody was ducking underneath us. The new piece was going over their head, and they were still rolling out. It was quite a circus act to do it. Yet it was like I say, organized chaos, because things got done in the right orders, on time, and properly done. And by the time we finished it, it had worked out perfectly. And we're going to do the next hull in about 6 weeks, and we'll do it identically to how we did this, because for even all of us having done this for the first time, it worked out. Everything got done, and it all got done before any epoxy got to set up. And so it was always within the right window as we were applying everything. And it helped that Brian and I had pre-cut all of the pieces the day before. We spent about 6 hours cutting the basalt into exactly the right shapes for each of these spots, because each one of them is different due to the way the hull is curved and such. Though they're all trapezoids, and they're all a different shape, so we had to measure each one separately and cut them all. And of course Marianne was there cutting for us, so it was the 3 of us for those 6 hours getting it done. But because we had prepped everything to the right sizes, it worked out very well. And there are a few spots where, as you can see, like along the bottom there, where the lengths are slightly different, but that doesn't really matter. They're all within the range that they need to be to protect that part of the hull. This is the mixing team. They are the mad scientists of our group. They've been mixing up both the honey consistency and the straight epoxy as fast as they can to supply the rest of everything. It's all being done by weight.
They're done on that side.
Yeah, you can use it.
I guess you're out of epoxy down the best side.
Okay, they're working on it.
Okay.
There you go. The epoxy team is doing well.
Brian took over for me for a minute, so I can sit down.
So here we are getting towards the end of the whole thing, and that's Dale and Terry taking down the last piece of peel ply that the rest of us are going to roll on to the very stern, and that will be the end of this extravaganza. And you can see it's getting a lot calmer now because most of it's done, so there are people swarming all over doing it. But the crew performed wonderfully, and we want to make sure that we thank everybody who came and helped, because it was an intensive 3 hours of work, and everybody gave it their best, and it all got done. And so we're very excited about how it came out. And for our first haul ever, for any of us, it went well. And so we just really want to repeat this on the next haul because it went so well on the first one.
We had fun today. Everybody, Phil taught everybody their jobs, and it was really kind of cool. After about 40 minutes, the volume picked up, and everyone started really talking because they got comfortable and confident in their jobs, and we did a pretty good job. It turned out pretty good, and it went fast. Phil's going to have to let Carl go, though. Carl is, you know, he's really holding the whole crew back. But look how beautiful, man. Nice, nice, nice. And it's made out of stone, and it's gonna wear like iron. It's solid, and this was fun. This was fun. Good crew.
And I gotta close the microphone to talk. We're gonna be doing a video this week, later in this week, to show you why we went with Basalt, because it's a lot stronger, and so we're going to take it out and we're going to do some impact tests. We're going to run it over the car between, you know, some bricks. We're going to shoot it with a gun.
That's fun.
We're going to do a bunch of stuff.
When we put that layer on, it looked like chainmail. It literally looked like Mylar.
Yeah.
Cool.
So anyway, it's on. If only it was the last hole. So in 6 weeks, we're going to do it again. And I'm not sure we'll be that much better than we were today because things went well.
As you've seen earlier in this video, Brian and I have been seaming together the very, very long hull panels and deck panels that go along the sides and top of the boat full length. And these things have gotten very long and very heavy, so while we had our big crew here, we decided to have them help us move these largest pieces and to put them over against this fence where they're going to stay until we need to put them onto the boat. So we'll put them over there and then cover them up with some plastic and such so that they're not out any weather if we happen to get anything, a light rain, because in the tropic weather like this, in the July, August, September, it is possible to have a little bit of a thunderstorm from the heat and evaporation off the ocean there. So just in case, we'll get these covered so that the water doesn't get onto the edge where the foam is still exposed and cause any issues there. So the big crew marched them in and marched them back, and then we had to set them down. These things are actually quite heavy. It took a lot of people to pick this up and put it down. We'll have to have this entire crew back again to put these onto the hull when we tab them on one of these days. But those two pieces that we're putting down today over there won't be on for quite some time because we leave those off so that we can work on the inside of the boat and still have airflow in from the sides and put them on later. Now here's the second one for the starboard side. They're so long, we had to go out the gate all the way up to a car there. Just made it on the other end, and then we could swing it around and start inserting it in. And then we had to go all the way to the back of this whole yard to get the front end in, past this pole for the shade. And that allowed us to get it up against the fence, and then we just walked it back in again. So it was nice to have a big crew, and that really helped.
They don't hear me when I say hold on, do they?
No.
Freeze!
Catch this on video.
All right. Continue.
One more.
Yeah. Okay, we're pulling the peel ply off the center portion of the hull. No. Oh, wait.
I thought we started up here.
You're right. We're done right here. Okay. So we have pulled the peel ply, starting from, you can't really see it, but starting from here on back to where Dale is right now. And the reason is we're about to put the third layer on the center part of the hull, which is the part that rests on the seafloor if we're beaching the boat, and that's why we want that extra third layer right along the keel, so to speak, down there. Now we don't need it up front because this will be in the air, and the very stern would be in the air as well, so it's just down through the center right there. So we're going to put on a piece of plain weave over the top of that right now. We have the plane weave pretty much on. All we have left to do is get the peel ply on top of it. We're just making sure that it's completely wetted out everywhere before we do that, but it looks really good for the most part. We're almost there. All right, why don't you and Brian start getting that peel ply. Okay, time for peel ply. Okay, just somewhere near the middle. It doesn't matter too much because this is going to be way beyond it. So we'll go about this far, Terry, and now we'll try to get the wrinkles out. This one's not too bad because you guys can pull backwards, so we're going to go a little forward because you can pull that way. If you've got any wrinkles, pull down on the bottom, Terry. All right, Terry, let's unroll. It shut off? Oh. Unroll. We'll fix that. Pull that wrinkle down. All right, let's just walk along and look for little spots that are little bubbles or anything anywhere. I mean, it's looking great, but I'm being nitpicky now. I get that way. All right, so we have our final layer down and the peel ply is on top of it now. So you can kind of get a look at it there. So that concludes the Saturday of doing the entire full length of this hull with 2 layers and then the plain weave on that 3rd layer through the center portions. So we got it done. We did the first part, of course, this morning from 6 a.m. till 9:30. And we did this part from 5 p.m. to quarter to 7. So the longish day, but we took a break in the middle and went and had a barbecue at my house. So for those who attended, some people had to go, obviously, but we didn't need as many people for this 3rd layer, and we had 6 here, and that was optimum perfect. So everything worked out great.
We had a big crew over to the lot on Saturday, finishing up the basalt on our port hull. So now that we've crossed over into August, let's take a look at our hours calculations for the month of July. So the first week of July was just Phil and Brian working at the lot, just the 2 of them, and they each put in their 40 hours for that week. Now let's take a look at the second week in July. So we started with a bit of a heat wave that week, so we had to cut short some days, so each one put in 36 hours that week, so it was just the 2 of them. Now in the 3rd week, the heat wave continued, so we were only able to do 30 hours each for Phil and Brian that week. And on Friday, we had some help from Brian DeRuiter picking up our Sicomin shipment. So he added another 4 hours for that day. Now let's take a look at the last week of July. And unfortunately, the heat wave continued. So Phil and Brian were each able to put in 30 hours that week, but we had some great help from Phil's friend Brent Field, who put in 6 hours each on Monday and Tuesday of that week, and Brian's brother Dale put in 6 hours on Wednesday of that week. So we were very grateful for that help. Now, for our yearly totals, for the month of July, we have 294 hours, and that's pretty short thanks to that heat wave. So in projecting out our total hours for the project, we're at 9,626 hours, which is quite short of our goal of 10,000 hours. But we will make up some of those hours coming up when the weather is a bit more cooperative with us. That's where we are on our total hours.
And I just wanted to add one more thing to what Marianne was talking about. The projected hours for this project are exactly that, projected forward. And we've really only got the first, 3 months or so in there. And so that's taking that as if that's the way the rest of the whole 2 years are going to be and projecting how many hours we're going to do. So it's not very accurate yet. So don't worry too much about us looking like we're behind on those hours. As we get further into the project, that number will get more and more accurate as we go because there's less projected months. And speaking of projected forward and such, if you'll remember, we had a video where we went over phase 1, and I'll put a link to that video up here, of what we thought we would accomplish in the first 4 months. And we've gone through the first 4 months now, April, May, June, July. And so we are going to take a look next week in the video at what we said and thought we were going to accomplish and what we actually accomplished, and whether we feel that we're behind, on track, or ahead even of schedule. So look for that next week. And also next week, you're going to see that now that we've got the Basalt on that port canoe, we're going to start fairing it. And that's a brand new thing for us because none of us have ever faired a hull before. So come see how that goes. I'll be curious to look at that myself. Anyway, so thank you all for watching the video. We really appreciate you showing up and watching. And thank to our patrons who are supporting our project and keep these videos coming. Without our patrons, we couldn't take the time to do all these videos. So thank you very much for that.
Yes, thank you. And don't forget to like and subscribe and click on the bell icon to be notified of our next video.
Right, well, see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.